Hi, and welcome to the Wonkat Weekend Live Chat. I am Robin Banakia, and this is the lovely and talented Stephen Robinson.
Hi, Robin.
Hi.
I think I will start this.
Yeah.
Um, no, actually, just to start, I was reading the comments and someone was upset that I was writing about the gun massacre in Texas. And when I said there was a gun massacre in Texas, and this was just a week after the gun massacre in Cleveland, Texas, and I got a very angry, irate thing explaining that there are gun massacres across the country last week. And so that I thought I would take this opportunity to explain to everyone how sentences work.
Yeah.
So if I say there was a gun massacre in Texas just a week since another gun massacre in Texas, maybe those two sentences are connecting to. Uh, but that actually does address our larger topic of how we should not murder people we find annoying.
And I do find a lot of people annoying. No, I don't.
um, more seriously though, what if
It's
you
been a really particularly horrifying week for people who just think that they can, oh, someone did something that I think is bad. Let me take this to the absolute most disproportionate degree in order to handle it. And we have to some very unfortunate results. Obviously, what we're talking about is the subway killing of Jordan Neely. Um, God, I don't even know. Like, all I keep thinking about is like, how do you actually hold on to someone's neck for 15 minutes?
But I just want to clarify though, from
Yeah.
what I've been reading, this was done for you
Yes.
lovely white ladies out there who, men like myself, even in our peak
Yeah. Yeah.
rationality, even at our peak rationality can freak you out.
Mhm.
And so you just want to ride the subway without our ickiness bothering you, making you upset. And this white knight literally um is protecting you.
Yes.
Because being annoyed on the subway or feeling threatened on the subway is
I mean,
far
here's the
greater
thing. Like,
rather than seeing someone murdered. Seeing someone
we both
murdered in
lived in
front of you.
areas where there have been, where we've like, had subways. You lived in New York. I live in Chicago. We've all dealt with wacky people on the subway. I have dealt with some really messed up dudes who are not even, mentally disturbed. Just, weird fucking people who are like, hey, it's an empty bus. Why don't I sit next to you? I did not take out a knife and stab them. I got up and moved.
Oh yes, I
Um,
mean a lot of the I saw one colleague was going online about not well again colleague general colleague of mine was discussing how women they say this or saying justifying this killing as far as protecting women, but it's like, well, from catcalling, from being at bars where Wall Street douchebags peel up on you and make you very uncomfortable. Removing yourself is what you do,
yeah.
not to, and if things escalate, but not to literally kill. And it also goes to, we can debate how threatening the mentally ill, the seemingly mentally ill person was who was actually he was just shouting on the subway, whatever.
Yeah,
I saw that a
he
lot.
wasn't
We can
actually
debate.
threatening anyone that I know. Like, I don't think he was.
No,
Like,
just
he just
that.
said, I want, I don't care if I go to jail because, hey, the fact is, if you're a homeless person, that's one of the only places you're going to be able to get a meal and possibly and shelter. It's a really
Oh
horrifying
yes, but I mean that just speaks
world
to a
that we
general
live in.
sense of vigilantism. I've been on trains on a crowded train. I mean, I was on a train once, and there was a man behind me, like really like spooning me on the train, and there was like six people on the train. So I felt like, okay, well, this is seemingly not a crowded train. Why are you
Yeah,
so close? And I was like very uncomfortable. And even if it had got even more uncomfortable, like he touched me, murder is not the response. And I think what happens with vigilantism is that it allows, you know, in a state without a death penalty, or
hmm
like where literally someone can be executed for
yeah,
what I mean, even let's say let's say he did what they were saying. He comes on screaming, threatening. That is not a capital offense.
Yeah,
You're arrested and tried.
exactly. Like that
Here
is
it's
not
like
a, yeah, that's not a thing that you kill people for. I don't think that you should kill people for any reason, including capital punishment, but not a thing that you kill people for. That's not what that punishment is.
so then you can say, I'm going to stop this from happening. I'm protecting other people. And
Mhm.
I never wanted someone to die when I cut off their oxygen for 15 minutes. And I'm supposedly trained, because all these things are saying how this guy is a Marine, former Marine, and others have said, no. If you're trained, you would
Yeah.
be trained to know that this is
You'd also know
going
that
to
people
kill
can't
you.
hold their breath for 15 minutes. I used to be an opera singer. I mean, I like, okay, not like professionally, but I took classes. Um, I can't hold my breath for 15 minutes. If I can't, then like, I don't know I don't know what the world record is for holding your breath, but I'm pretty sure it's less than 15 minutes. Like, hold
Well,
on. I will actually look that up. Record
no, I mean,
holding breath. Um,
Batman could hold his breath.
11:35 minutes for a man, 9:02 minutes for a woman. That still seems like a lot, but it's still not 15 minutes.
Yes. No, it is not in any way. You can't essentially use obvious lethal force against someone and then act like I was just trying to
Like,
stop
how could
them.
I
And
have known?
how could I have known that cutting off? And it's grotesque what people are watching. I mean, we've discussed how people have overwhelming contempt for poor
Oh,
people and the homeless.
Michael is explaining that to me. I don't, a okay. I did not know that was a thing. Michael tells us a rear neck choke is not a choke of oxygen, but it's a blood choke. It cuts the blood from the neck arteries to the brain, Robin. Much worse, actually. Wow, that is, I guess, the more you know. Wow. I did not
Well,
know.
well,
Still,
Michael is trained, so
yeah.
as a former Marine, but there is this contempt for the poor. And I was telling you
Mhm.
offline about this, of where I was in a restaurant in South Carolina, not South Carolina, in San Francisco, and a seal wanders in. It was on the waterfront, and a seal wanders in, and everyone's kind of like, "Oh my gosh, a seal!" And some people, that's cute. Oh,
That
it's
is
a baby seal.
delightful.
But it's like, well, no, you don't want to get too close. But generally, what
Or thank
happens
you.
is that they contact animal control, quote unquote, the professionals,
Yeah.
basically, and who come in and deal with it. And we just don't have that for actual human beings in distress. It's like, the police come in, and if, we've said many times, executing people having mental health episodes because there's
Yeah.
no way they can comply accordingly. And here, like, if I'd been able to, but let's say a
Mhm.
puppy or dog, it's like, oh
Yeah.
no, dog has wandered onto the subway, and he's kind of looking at me funny and growling, and I'm not a great pet person anyway. So I'm gonna grab the dog, and I'm gonna choke the life out of it to the point where it's crapping on itself. Everyone would be
Yeah.
horrified. What a
Oh,
horrible person. Oh
let's
my
be real.
God, what are you doing? They would stop me before I were
Yeah.
able to actually kill a dog in front of it. And instead, everyone's kind of like, I guess he's killing this person. Uh,
Well, I mean, let's be real. People are way more horrified by that than they are by killing people.
oh, absolutely. But
Like,
yes,
and I'm not saying like it's great to abuse animals, obviously, but it is sort of upsetting whenever you hear people literally saying like, "Oh, well, if a dog is sad, then my heart breaks," but like 14,000 people get murdered, and I'm like, give or take, and it's just like a very like odd thing to me. Um,
yes. No one takes stray homeless people in. Not that they probably should, but I'm saying there's not even an instinct, of there's no sort of cuteness that we've evolved.
I mean,
Um,
here's the thing though. For like the past couple, I think there's like the reason this is happening. I think, is because, like, for the past couple years, and definitely within the last year, Fox and other outlets have really been ratcheting up this whole, like, oh my God, crime. Oh my God, society is falling apart. Um, all of these horrible, things are happening. We're in crisis. You're gonna walk, if you go outside, you're gonna get murdered. And I think that, like, they just people are so freaking ratcheted up from that you know like, all these people were like responding to I did an article on, like, not a similar thing, but like the man who tackled the woman who was shoplifting, and people were like, what about societal decay? This is about society, like, taking care of our society and everything, and not standing around doing nothing. um
So killing
you know
people, like, literally in front, so I lived in New York for 15 years. So
yeah,
during the peak, I moved there in 96 after college, the peak of the Giuliani world. We were talking about Giuliani time, and then through the Bloomberg, the
yeah,
first 100 years of the Bloomberg administration. And like, as it wasn't Taxi Driver anymore. Yes, things were sort of improving for reasons perhaps unrelated to Giuliani's policies, but there were still homeless people on the trains. You were in a city. You
yeah,
got your "This Isn't Friends" starter packet. This isn't Friends. This isn't how it works. But you saw people acting weird on the train,
yeah,
specifically based on where you were. They were acting out. There was the woman with all of her belongings somehow pulled on the train, so seemingly living there. Some woman not wearing clothes once, like one guy rabbling stuff that would be very shocking to people. You do get some of the newer to it, so it's like shocking to
yeah.
people who had friends coming over, like, oh my God, like, yes. But those are all kind of, not say like wacky things or this is sort of weird, uncomfortable. To me, seeing a human being getting murdered in front of me, I would still be thinking of, like, oh, there's the time in 1997 that I literally saw a guy crap his pants, another human being choke the life out of him. Like, I would not, it would be hard to recover from literally seeing someone murdered in front of me. And
Yeah,
it's horrifying. And but weird people on the subway you dealt with, you just either
it's a fact of life. Like,
you
I've
went
been
to
on
a
the
different
subway with a
car.
lot of weird people. I've been on the subway with a lot of people who, like, seemed like something might happen, but nothing did. Um,
Oh,
the fact is that, like, there are ways other than choking someone to death that this can be dealt with. Um,
well, it's unclear, like, also, it, again, I want to place this outside of, you put this in again, the Wall Street douchebags. I've witnessed this. I've been at clubs, um, and not even just Wall Street douchebags of all professions at the club where the guy is being
yeah,
too aggressive. And no one, like, saying certain things to you that are sexually aggressive, sexually uncomfortable, and you're my friend and I'm with you, and I'm like, okay,
mhm.
we leave. I don't, I would not choke the life out of this person with a similar presumption that this person is potentially dangerous, even though there's
Yeah,
all sorts of histories of perfectly sane people being a threat to women or others. But there's this idea that because he is clearly homeless or looking that he is such a threat beyond just being an asshole in public. Like, what if he's just an asshole in public? You don't kill someone
mhm,
for that. Um, and I there's a story. So apparently, years ago, some friends and I were in New Orleans, and it was a friend's birthday, and I had arranged, like, we're at some restaurant. It was outside, but it was on the same day there was some sort of parade, fireworks, and I just was not prepared for this. I don't do well with noise, so I was already kind of like, you know, tense. And we're outside in the balcony, and there were some ladies who were just so loud that you could hear them above the fireworks. And I was like, losing it. And as friends who knew me, they could tell I was upset because, as my friend said, your voice was like, instead of being at this level, you were at this level of
yeah,
like, could you please be quiet? And they were like, oh my God, he's really mad. and and so the lady, and the drunk woman who's kind of drunk and loud, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then she starts like grabbing at me. "Oh, I'm so sorry," or whatever. And my friend Megan is telling the story, says, and then she started touching him, and I thought, oh no, he's gonna throw her off the building. You know, because I'm very like no noise,
Yeah,
no
no,
personal contact. Like, I am the introvert on Vulcan. Like I don't like don't I don't I stand out there. Like you Vulcans are too
oh
emotional
my God, I
for
would
me.
annoy the shit out of you, Steven. I really
I don't I am the, as I said, a sort of the black
you're
wasp.
yeah, you're a delicate
So,
flower is what it is.
but like there's no whatever instinct I might have had, I'd be like, stop this. You just
Mhm,
because I'm not psychotic and not a murderer. So this person grabbed a guy in mental distress and just
mhm. Like I really just don't know how you do that and how you can like hold a human. Yeah, okay.
what he's
Yeah,
not
you can if someone is like attacking you physically, sure, defend yourself. You don't be the aggressor yourself because then you're the one who's the problem.
well, I don't understand
Yelling
the
is not,
homeless guy is an
yeah,
aggressor in the he was not he was also not an aggressor to this guy. So that's the sort of
yeah,
thing. So which is sort of you know, if as you said, you're someone who does not support the death penalty, whatever. So someone could be being aggressive to you in a way you don't like. Your preference probably is to, I'm just gonna put up with this until the train stops, because that happens. I'm gonna get off, or I'm gonna get up and go
yeah,
to the different car while it's running. Either way, within 2 minutes, I can resolve this issue. So
yeah,
that's what we're talking about. On a train, it's about 2 or 3 minutes to get away from a very upsetting person.
yeah.
You can either get up, you
Everyone
can
could have
move.
fucking left. Like there were options.
But we have to we're now describing this as somehow the homeless person is the aggressor, the person with
Yeah.
literally no power, no, and essentially it's just shouting and yelling. And as I was already saying, it's behavior you experience at a bar. I was again recently at a bar meeting some colleagues, and there was a guy who was drunk, who was talking too loudly. Of course, it happens. The bartender very politely says, "You're kind of fucked up. We need you to leave." What would if he did not leave after that? I'm sure they about someone might forcibly or gently forcibly, but literally not choke the life out of.
Mhm.
They would not execute this person on the spot, which is what happened. Because unless you were trying to kill him, what was the goal of the chokehold? Like suddenly to be not crazy, like I don't understand, or
Like
not
that's gonna
upset.
calm someone down.
Yes, he's like he was fighting back. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's fight or flight. Like you start going
Yeah. I
because
mean,
that's just a
I would
human
if someone
instinct.
started choking me, I'm pretty sure that's what I would do, like in that context. Um, like there's not really like another option for like what you're just gonna be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna like play dead now. Oh, now I'm calm. Now I'm calm. I can't, there's no blood going to my head, as Michael explained, but yeah, sure. Just gonna calm right down now. This is very relaxing.
Well, it's
Like,
just interesting. There's this whole thing of like New York is too soft on crime, and all the Manhattan and what's interesting is that Republicans aren't seizing on the fact that a guy murdered someone on a subway in front of other people
yeah,
and the police let him go. I mean, of course, the guy I think has connections from the police force. I think his father might have been a former police captain, of course. But the guy just walked off to essentially kill again. He's could
yeah.
be riding other subways. God help you if you have your music on too loud or something. I was you and I were also
Well,
talking about this.
we know what their different definition of crime is. Like,
Oh yeah, I mean it's fascism. You don't need to find any sort of uh so fascism is very clearly it's white people, especially white men, could do whatever they want. They're
yeah.
empowered to do whatever they want, which goes back to the old slave patrols. You and I were talking about this of how I believe it's the second episode of classic Law and Order in 1990 where
Mhm.
a young Cynthia Nixon shoots some black guys on the subway, um, with the idea being that she was prepared for it because she had been maybe had an incident in the past
Yeah.
or whatever. And you were shocked by the title, which
Yes.
was Subterranean Homeboy Blues, which was a reference to the Bob
You
Dylan
know, the
song.
person who came up with that is like, to this day, they're like, that was clever. That was clever. Like they cherish that.
I think the title did appear on screen. That was a period where their titles did appear on
Yeah.
screen. That was like the first 10 episodes they appeared on screen. So that's worth it. I think when they don't, I would just be like, yeah, just do the one with the vigilante killing. So that was one that was ripped from the headlines. Um, but yes, it's just shocking that this is, and the response to mental illness, and it also tees up with the horrible latest gun massacre in Texas, where Megyn Kelly, one of the worst people alive, had her whole rant about how you can't solve gun violence. It's over. You're beaten. Why don't we try something else? Which I don't know. Okay, well, the guns are the problem. What am I supposed to
Yeah.
like?
Well, what they want, and they keep saying like,
They just
no,
want to
what
give
these
up.
good guys with a gun, like they want vigilantism. Like we come from a,
Yeah. Well, it
in the
clearly
United States.
doesn't work. They aren't enough good guys on the scene. So they have actually stopped overtly saying that because it's so untrue. Like essentially by the time a good guy shows up, there was a cop nearby who killed the shooter, but already 8 people were dead. So I think
Mhm.
they're starting to say it's all about mental illness. So
Yeah.
Greg
Well,
Abbott and Kelly, it was all about mental health, but they don't do anything to actually address those issues, or they have some like, okay, well, if there's all this problem of mentally ill people, violently mentally ill people, shouldn't they, isn't a bigger problem that they have such easy access to weapons of death? Like that
yeah.
that seems to
Well,
be a
I
gaping
mean,
hole.
although the fact is, people with mental illness are far more likely to be victims of crime than perpetrators. Um, what I will say is, I had a fairly unrelated experience this week where I was not able to refill my Wellbutrin for whatever reason. Well, okay, because I have to have a doctor's appointment every 3 months in order, like with this new doctor, in order to get my prescription filled. And, we have insurance at Wonket, but that also costs money. And I'm like, there's literally no reason for anyone to be checking in on me. I've been on this for 4 years, the exact same dose. But like, if I have as much trouble as I do managing my issues, I'm like, white lady with insurance and health insurance, and like, I'm I'm in a good place economically. Like I'm fine. And getting like nothing is more frustrating than trying to get any kind of help, mental health wise. And if I'm having trouble, what are they going through? Like if I can't get freaking Wellbutrin, where are these people getting help? Like,
Well, that's their whole, when they talk about Eric Adams, in a long line of New York's winning mayors. He's also talked about mental health and then Megyn Kelly. What they're talking about is locking up people, which
yeah,
granted, even Reagan just said that costs too much, just let them on the streets. But locking up people forever, essentially for being poor
yeah,
and a problem, and that's their only solution, not actual treatment,
yeah,
because actual treatment costs money. But a poor person, yes, to have access, socialized medicine. So are we discussing social? We won't touch the dental care. We've discussed that. We
mhm,
won't touch the dental care. But how about socialized mental? Like if you're prescribed a mental whatever for anxiety or any of those things, but it's absurd because there's a whole range of potentially mental health ailments that
yeah,
need prescriptions or whatever. Essentially socialize everything. Those people cannot, if you're working at McDonald's and you're not going to be able to afford some of the stuff or have access to it or to be on a regular regimen. So people fall beneath the cracks. You have these events that can always be traced to these huge income inequality and housing crises and all sorts of issues that doesn't make it easy if you have a mental health issue.
mhm,
Literally, to where the guy, his apparently unhinged rant is just, I am hungry and have no I mean, there's the O. Henry
I don't care if
story.
I die, or go to jail. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
there's the O. Henry
like
story
that's
where
surprising. Why? Like,
the guy keeps trying to get arrested so he can spend the coldest
yeah,
days of the in prison. Of course, he would just get choked out on the street now if he tried to like not pay a bill or something to wind up in prison. But um, that's
and
you. That's what you have to
actually,
deluge.
sorry.
Go
One
ahead.
of the things they keep bringing up is, oh, this guy had so many arrests. Yeah, because he was trying to go to jail so that he could sleep somewhere. You know, there's literally no reason for anyone to be homeless in this country. I'm sorry, there isn't. They're only homeless because we've decided that that's okay.
Well, and
We're okay
multiple
with that.
arrests occur when you're poor. Those are problems of
Yeah,
poverty. And I will probably write some larger thing about this because I was thinking about this even prior to this murder. So the John Mulaney special, the comedian, and it's about his rehab issues, and he admits how privileged he is. He talks
yeah,
about I was like listening. He talks about drinking at 13 and smoking
yeah,
weed at 16, and I'm always like, well, all right, that's when I would have gone to jail forever.
yeah.
And like I
I
don't
did
wind
smoke
up on
weed
Saturday Night
in
Live.
middle school, but
Oh,
yeah.
I don't. Well, no, no,
Yeah.
no. There are black people who do that. Their trajectory is much worse. So
Oh
the
yeah.
trajectory of so generally what I learned, I would wind up whenever I was the one black person in a white group of people either in college or at a job, it was like I was sort of the um most straight edged person there. I hadn't broken any laws, hadn't done anything because essentially I was always understood that there was like no room for error. You step out of line, it's
Yeah.
over, especially if you start. And this goes back to when they figured out the best way around slavery was to lock people up. That's a form of
Mhm.
you can now create a class of people who can be treated like slaves.
Yeah.
And so Mulaney's special, he talks about these incidents of where, and one that's is interesting to me was before his intervention, and he jokes about being 2 hours late to his intervention. So before his intervention, he goes coked out of his mind back to SNL demanding a haircut, as he jokes, from the Emmy Award winning team. He doesn't work there anymore. They essentially give him the haircut because, as he jokes, it's like best to just make the homeless guy, make the crazy guy happy, right? The coked up guy happy, let him go. And you think of that very scenario, how that played out, where he's all to leave.
Mhm.
Whereas not just Jordan, but any poor person, regardless of race, showing up at McDonald's, their place of business, coked out of their minds, shouting and demanding, you know, a fish fillet sandwich. It's not just so much, okay, all right, Stan, here's your fish fillet sandwich. Just get out of here. Oh my God, he's weird. Let's go get him some help later because he needs help. What actually would happen is your um, vigilante killer might, while he's eating his Big Mac, get up and choke the life out of the guy
Mhm.
because you're making a scene. You're doing these things. So every step, there's just no. If you're poor, there's just no humanity for you, and at every
Yeah.
level. Mulaney talks
Well,
about trying to sell a Rolex watch because he was trying to avoid to sell a Rolex to for money for drugs. It's all this sort of stuff where these are things that for a poor person he just winds up either in jail or dead.
yeah.
And so we just don't address this.
I mean, the thing is, as far as humanity goes, I think basically part of what people do is they don't see the humanity in poor people so that they can deal with the world as it is. Like,
Mhm.
if you basically, like, it's like you have, I imagine that they have to shut off the part of their brain that understands that those people are human beings.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
I've talked about this before. The guy with for anyone who hasn't heard the story, I once came across a homeless man sitting on the corner of Michigan and Chicago, like a very like populate, like all the tourists are there, 4-inch icicle hanging off of his nose. He had clearly been sitting there long. Like, how do you sit in a place long enough for a 4-inch icicle to form hanging off of your nose and no one does or says anything? Like, it's like you have to just fucking turn your humanity off entirely and just turn their humanity off entirely. And I think that's why I don't think we'd be able to live with ourselves if people saw the same amount of humanity in those in like the poor as they do in like people in their economic peer group. It would be really, I mean, they'd be as fucked up as I am. So, and having panic attacks all the time. But
Yeah, it's someone had just commented about how everyone is just exhausted with feeling like when you're on a subway and there's crazy people, you don't know what might happen. And again, I go back to why we treat human beings worse than wild animals. For wild
mhm,
animals, we understand that I'm enjoying my hike in the woods. Oh, there's this, I need to keep my distance or hear whatever. It's unpredictable. That's fine. Not that, oh no, I'm so angry. I want to like slaughter every bear I see or something, or every
yeah,
squirrel or something. It's just the true violence on that subway, and I'm going to repeat this, the only real violence on that subway was someone murdering another human being, like
yeah,
someone being aggressive or and then the fact that that's get amped up is your issue is with the poverty. He seems he's how he's dressed, how he looks, how he might smell. These are the things that are triggering folks, because a lot of those people, and maybe they're all Amish, I don't know, but a lot of those people go to bars and are around drunk people who are
yeah,
annoying and fucked up and aggressive in certain things, and they just leave. They don't execute people, or they don't say, I'm never going to go to a bar again because
yeah,
someone was fighting near but me or acting weird. um Everyone knows that. And so what they're presenting here is somehow that, I don't know, I'm so afraid of what these poor people, they might stab me or do something because un they're just sort of a different class of people. They've become, we've
unpeople.
dehumanized them. Yes,
Um,
they've become unpeople, which is unfortunate, right?
I mean, one thing that I keep going back to mentally is like something that is just so American is the idea of vigilantism in general. People love the idea of, cowboys, and I know you like your superhero shows, um, or comic books and whatnot, but like a lot of that is like vigilantism. There's always this idea that is just, I think, very much drilled into people, even outside of Fox News. Oh, the police are never doing enough. Everyone's too soft on crime. Like people need to go
Oh,
out
sure.
and take care of crime themselves and be
And that all
heroes.
traces
And that's how
back
you
to
become a
Birth of a
hero.
Nation. But that traces back to Birth of a Nation. Birth of a Nation is the first
Mhm.
literal costumed superhero, costume crime fighter story, because the Klan are
That is
wearing
that.
costumes.
Wow. Yeah.
And it hits the same beats. I would argue there's difference between, of course, Batman and, say, Superman. The idea of, I've been given this gift, I'm gonna stop a volcano. I'm gonna help people. Sort of the idea of like, I want to help other people, and with my gift, is sort of different. But even there was a period where um sort of what the quote unquote silly Batman, when he's more like Zorro, was the idea of, on the old Adam West Batman show, was the
I
idea
liked
that
that.
like, we we literally
Yeah.
can't solve this riddle. So Batman
Mhm.
is smart. He helps them solve the riddle. Actually, Robin always solved the riddles on the old Batman
Yeah,
show.
she did. No, nothing.
And so um which is different from, oh, what we really need is Batman to come in and beat up someone. Like, oh,
Mhm.
that's how, oh, we can't get this guy to crack, so let's have
Yeah.
Batman dangle him outside of a building, and then he wets himself and tells and I was always
Because
said,
that's the only way to really get things done.
yes, I
And
said, if you're gonna do that, then just do Batwoman or Batgirl, whatever, and they canceled the Batgirl thing. But like, I'd rather see frankly, a black Batgirl beating up crooked cops who won't prosecute rapists or do something. If you're gonna do that, but instead it's always essentially a rich white guy beating up poor people. Interesting
mhm.
you mentioned that, because in the 80s, when Batman started to become more like Rambo and more like it essentially the sort of there was a clear change, clearly reflected from the 1980s that you would
Mhm.
expect. And I remember there was one one comic book issue. Batman flies down, he stops the rapist, right? And not even rapists, I think just some just sort of people breaking into a store, slams into him, kicks their ass. One guy's lying on the ground, and he's like, "Get up! I didn't hit you that hard." And I'm like, "Well, you 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 took your 200 pounds of muscle from the top of this building onto the spine of a 120-pound junkie. I think you hurt him pretty hard."
Yeah. No, I
He's
would
just
think so, yes.
you've and even to that point of like Adam West's Batman could reliably fall on the well, Batman doesn't kill. Okay, well, yes, because the Adam West Batman is doing stuff that will not lead to. Whereas the guy in the 80s and then later in the Nolan films, whatever, no, he's killing people. Like you can't like you landed on that guy's spine. You like did the sort of
Yeah.
um,
But there is this.
literally,
Yeah.
he used to do Derek Chauvin maneuvers on people, like
Mhm.
putting their back talk and let it. No, you've killed multiple people, and I think this vigilante was from that world of like, I can beat the crap out of people, and I'm not going to kill anyone.
Yeah.
I was like, well, no. Most of the stuff is
Mhm.
fatal,
Yeah.
or you crippled him for life or something. It's not.
But I mean,
But
there's
no
just
one wants to.
very much this idea that, like, you know, there's no such thing as proportionality when it comes to crime. Anything is acceptable, however far you take it. And that is really, really kind of fucking frightening. Possibly why we have so many falsely convicted people in our system. Because, like, I mean, you've got the cops behaving that way, you've got people behaving that way, and then you've got, like, you look at the like, they actually ban the way that we do our interrogations in other countries, specifically because they are likely to produce, like, false confessions. Like,
But
but there's this
also,
idea, like, even when you watch, like, Law and Order, like, oh no, you do anything to get the person to say that they did it. And you go, so you, like, doesn't matter, you've got, like, Christopher Maloney beating the shit out of him. And it's acceptable because the end result is you're putting that bad guy away. With juries, people get angry about the idea of, oh, the jury let this guy go away and then he went and killed someone. So, like, no matter what, the juries are like, well, I'm not totally sure, but we don't want him getting out and sending, and killing someone. So, hey,
that was
let's,
always the fear, right? They let
yeah.
the liberal judge lets the killer out or that sort of thing,
Hmm.
like bending the rules. But yeah, it doesn't. I mean, I was always, and I should have known because obviously The Fugitive was based
Hmm.
on a guy being convicted for clearly. It's he's not just convicted of murder; he gets the death penalty, and it's clearly a circumstantial case because
Hmm.
there's
I've
no
never.
eyewitness. Um, but your television illiteracy is not why we're here,
I know.
Robin. It is. It's like, oops, sorry. But the point being,
Before I was born, so, like,
circumstantial here, meaning
yeah.
no one saw it, obviously because he's innocent, right? No one literally saw him. No one's lying. He wasn't framed. But you know, cases people are executed often for cases that are essentially rooted in like there's no sometimes not even an eyewitness, or the eyewitness is someone who was high, as you're writing in
I
the
mean,
Florida case. And to me, it's like it's one thing we can debate the death penalty, but there was a point of me when the part of me that ever supported the death penalty would have been like Dylan Roof, or like, okay, he did it, we saw him do it. It's on video, like, that type of thing.
mhm.
Someone actually killed, or our subway vigilante. Okay, well, yes, he's there. He killed this person. But the fact that like people are executed for where there's a possibility that person did not commit the
No,
crime
and people
is
are
nuts
okay
to
with
me.
it, and that is what is fucking terrifying. Like, I mean, I think so. There have been, like, over 3 dozen people freed from death row. because they were like, they turned out to be innocent. They were proven by DNA. Like, that's just the people who are proven by DNA to be innocent. And still people, like, no one is like, hey, maybe we're not good at this. Like, maybe this is not our expertise. We should perhaps go into something else, or like, maybe not murder people. Someone in the comments brought up Richard Glossop. I've been, losing my fucking mind over this case. Like, I mean, actual, like, hysterical, like, I've cried. Like, it's just because it's very, very frustrating, because it's very obvious that this man is, like, innocent, like, and we're like, there's literally no evidence at all, other than like a random, like, other than like a meth head saying he did it. Like, it's so very, very frustrating that there are so many of these cases where it's so clear that they didn't do it, and they're like, "Oh, nothing we can do. Gonna have to kill that guy."
Michael had just suggesting
Yes, I
you
do.
see the 30-year-old. So don't watch the 60-year-old TV show, but the 30-year-old movie
Okay.
that launched of The Fugitive, which is fine. That case is actually slightly less circumstantial because Kimball's wife, played by the great Celia Ward, is on the phone calling 911, and she's like, "Richard, he's going to kill me," because she's actually thinking she's desperately calling out to her husband, who's not actually at 911. So I don't know why she's saying this, but she's saying, "Richard, he's the guy killing." So she actually basically kills her husband on some, because she's putting it like, because of the pronoun game. So if that, I think he should go back in time and actually kill her. For you couldn't be a little bit clearer on the phone, but saying, "Richard, pause. He's," and by he, I actually mean a totally different person other than my husband, who I love, who's actually the medical, he's going to kill me. And I want to clarify before he does that it's not my husband. Please don't, convict him for murder. So that was always so that is actually, they try to make it a bit less circumstantial case, more of just bad luck. But again, bad luck happens. You have stupid victims who frame their husbands as their last act, and that's why the death penalty should not exist.
I mean, there was actually a guy whose whole thing for a hot minute is like, he was the analyzer of 911 calls and would be able to tell from a 911 call if the person who called 911 is the one who, like, really did it. And no, as it turned out, he did not have that ability. Like, it was not, he was wrong most of the time, but people do love the idea of, I heard their, 911 call and they didn't sound sad enough, or they sounded, they were too calm, or they were too hysterical. And like, there's, people feel like they understand crime, I think, in a way that, no, of course we do not. Like, and there's just always this, people have such a terror of people getting away with it. It's like, oh no, they're going to get away with it. So it's like they're happy to convict anyone. They're happy to kill someone because, oh, hey, we got someone who did a crime almost, because yelling, sure, that can be a crime.
But to go back to the guy, the subway killer who, the Neely, who was his apparent rap sheet is, again, if you are homeless, we've criminalized homelessness, and I'm all for doing that if you have a solution where people don't need to be homeless, where you can come up, but we've criminalized it to the point that we do want to make them, it's not just they're poor, they're criminals. So it's like, well, you charge them for sleeping in public, you charge them for X, Y, and Z, causing disturbances because of mental illness, that and as people have said, the lady freaking out at Whole Foods because she doesn't want to wear a mask is just, they do everything possible to not arrest her. She doesn't get arrested. She doesn't get the record. And I think
Well, that woman from Target was actually having, like, I don't know if you remember that video, but this woman was actually having a full-on nervous breakdown and like went to the, got mental health care afterwards and then came out and apologized. But, no one was attacking her. She was like alone throwing the
oh
masks
yeah.
all over the place. It was like,
Uh
man, can you please stop? Like,
yeah, like we just sort of, there's a way that we treat this sort of, if you're human and if you're no longer human, or if you're a minority, but essentially it's clearly different treatments. And I think the problem is, and Republicans are very big on wanting to try to do that, is for people to not see the difference, so that, you know, we don't realize, here's how your normal human empathy that you would have for people in these situations, we want you to not have for people
yeah.
who aren't like you. And so we kind of create these areas where they would deserve to be, they're unpeople. And essentially the homeless are an example of that. Mostly, we treat it as an aesthetic issue, as we discussed. So we don't want to see them on the subways. We don't want to see them on the streets or outside of businesses. And I get that. I don't like people regardless of their financial status. I don't really want to see them in public either. But, you know, it's very, you have to have a solution for it other than a final one. So I was
Yeah.
sort of, yes, I don't want people camping on the streets. I don't people living outside. There's all sorts of public health issues with that. They've done studies, if you read stories that are horrifying about some of the tent cities, because essentially humans are hierarchical creatures, right? So
Yeah.
essentially what happens is, and those people still have access to guns because their guns are so easy to find. So you just wind up with this sort of, essentially its own,
Mhm.
reign of terror, essentially, where the one person's controlling all the other people, and it's not good, and also not good for women and for others. But there's a solution but Republicans don't want to do anything that would resolve that issue, to get people off the street, to feel those things of, because that might be socialism, God
Yeah.
forbid. And unfortunately, ignoring the problem
Well,
doesn't
they don't want
help.
to accept that there are consequences to capitalism. There's consequences to not taking care of the poor. There's consequences to keeping the minimum wage as low as we have it. There are consequences. This is one of the consequences. They're the ones who decided they want to live like this. There's no other way under their system, under what they want the world to be like. This has to exist.
Oh yeah.
Factually, like there's no, in the best, like the absolute best case scenario of, full capitalism and what these people want, these people exist. This situation exists. It has to. There's no version of of their, dream for the world that does not end like this. And that is why they are stupid and bad.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and I think those things do sync up. What we saw in Texas, and we saw in the subway killing, because I've often made this argument. Um, the villains in movies, the Joker is not actually mentally ill, because he's calculated, he's controlled. They've actually done studies. No, he's just a horrible human. He's homicidal. He's a horrible person, but not actually mentally ill. And the reason that happens is that whenever there's a mass shooting, or people doing something that's horrible, oh my God, you kill children or whatever, the response is, oh, this is mental illness. Let's start talking about mental illness before there's a motive. And there's potential. I was watching this while we were discussing, there's potential that there was an actual motive, and this person might not actually be mentally ill. But when there's a shooting and people like, oh, let's immediately, the one thing we do know, let's ignore the fact that guns kill these people. Let's now talk about, oh, it's mental health, it's mental illness. We're not
Mhm.
locking people up long enough, as Megyn Kelly said. And when it's often demonstrated this person did not have what would be classified as a mental illness, often just a character flaw, or often many other
Mhm.
problems, they don't backtrack from that. So what you're doing is feeding this narrative of that mentally ill people are inherently dangerous,
Yeah.
not, you know, um, not unpredictable. And I mean, unpredictable can be, again, not to equate human beings with wild animals or whatever, but unpredictability makes everyone comfortable, right? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how someone's going to respond in a situation. I'm in a confined space with them. I get that. But that is very different from this person's going to kill everyone.
I
And I
mean,
think
honestly, there's
feeding
a
that
reason why they
narrative.
tell you if someone attacks you, start like, acting wacky and in order to get them to go away. That is you know, because people will, you know, they're scared of that. And, it's human, it's fucked up, but it's human nature, like
Yeah, I mean,
to some degree. Like,
it's a sort of interest guy was sort of executed for giving what one would say would be a Fox News program monologue on the train because of just being upset, coming up and like, oh, I'm so angry or whatever, which everyone want, like, people feed their anger, like, okay, this guy's has problems.
yeah.
But in that situation, it's just like, we can't listen, it's a threat, we're just going to kill them. And I think we're starting to run out of time, but just the fact that this was a debate, like the the idea that,
Well, they're like,
and
they can't believe that we see anything wrong with what that guy did. They're in shock. So,
he's murdered anyone. um oh god, I'm sorry. The there's a reference to, again, the joke, because the idea of like, why doesn't Batman kill the Joker, which is the wrong question. This always frustrates me in the comics because it's very hard to, like, generally people who kill a lot of people cops wind up killing them. It's not up to the vigilante.
yeah.
But I do think that feeds into this idea of like, oh, this this person who has like a triple digit murder count in Gotham City is allowed to continue killing people because he's mentally ill and no one will do anything. So the only option is apparently the only conflict is whether the vigilante will execute him, as opposed to the fact that he would probably be shot on sight by the cops, which is what happens.
Yeah.
Um, I was actually just rewatching an X Files where some really hilarious police work from my beloved Gillian Anderson, who I loved her, but she, she made me actually like Margaret Thatcher. It's like, that's great acting. She's she's really good. Uh, so Gillian, there's a guy stalking a woman, and she has the gun and she identifies herself as a federal agent. Just
Mhm.
don't take another step. The guy keeps taking steps and eventually like takes the hostage. I'm like, well, okay, you would, like, a normal cop would have probably killed him multiple times by this point.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a sense of, also, TV shows craft this idea that cops really don't want to kill people. They give you every opportunity to surrender, as opposed
Mhm.
to, no, no, no. I think in real life, that
Yeah.
guy would have been probably
They
shot
shoot
in the
people
head.
in the leg rather than in the like. Which,
No,
like,
you can't
to
do
this day,
that.
I don't like. That actually seems like the better solution. Like, why? I mean, I know that you can hit an artery in the leg too, but look,
Yes,
still,
you can cripple someone by shooting them in the leg.
yeah,
They can bleed out. There's also, you'd have to be a marksman to be able to successfully
yeah,
do that about killing someone else. You just want you want cops to kill random civilians because they're shooting for the legs. Essentially,
yeah.
center of mass, easiest target. Fortunately, with guns everywhere, cops do have to shoot to what would essentially be to kill. But yes, I do miss the cop sharpshooter who can shoot like a gun out of someone's hand, which is actually, I think, impossible. So
I I have nothing to contribute. I would not know. Like, I've never.
you've never tried. I always look. It's one
I
of
mean,
my.
I'm not even. I'm not even very good at darts. So, like,
Yes, there's an
paintball,
episode.
yes, but
Yes, it's one of my favorites. Is I think Charlotte Rampling, the actor, is in an episode of The Avengers, and she's a sharpshooter, and she shoots the gun out of the bad guy's hand, which is like I don't know why that's cool. I think I am just been programmed by American television to find that type of sharpshooting cool, but actually guns are not cool
They are
because you have
not.
to they are inherently bad. But the option, I would much rather again be shot by a cop than have a 225-pound bat costume vigilante land on my back. Like I feel like just shoot me. Like I think that's what all criminals in Gotham are like. Yeah, like Batman doesn't like guns. Yes, but this guy's still, my buddy's still in a wheelchair for the last time. Just let's let the cop put a gun on you and surrender. You're much better off. So,
Mm.
but yes, I will keep monitoring this to see what the eventual situation is, whether this guy's charged. It is astonishing that that's a question, that like whether or not, and that whether a jury will.
I would be very, I hate to say it, I'd be very surprised if he is.
No, I mean, there's
Like,
no.
I do nowhere near the faith in humanity required to believe that that would happen.
Yes, and he has a lot of connections. He released like his very self-serving statement where he smeared the victim and also sort of tainted the jury
Yeah.
pool of like this history of, saying that this person had this history of violence and arrest, which he did not know. I tend to not know the criminal record of people I encounter.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, he
it's
did not know that ahead of time. He was not like, oh, hold on. You know what? This guy, I've known him since his Michael Jackson impersonator days, and he has been on a criminal rampage. No. By the way, like, I just have to say, unbelievably fucking talented, this guy. Like unbelievably talented. Like, he was like, I don't know if you saw his Michael Jackson impersonation. Like, that is so hard to do. That is no joke. He was an incredible dancer, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it just seems the American answer to I am hungry, I have nowhere to sleep is to have a white self vigilante choke the life out of you, to silence you permanently. Don't complain don't complain about it, and don't make us uncomfortable. And this is
Mhm.
your response. So
On that
um
note,
thanks everyone. We will see you next time.
please like and subscribe and all of that other good stuff. We'll see you next week.